People have no hesitations when they want to throw out their fantasy football rankings, and that's great. I mean, we all have opinions, and it's fun to talk back and forth with each other to figure out why you or I have somebody where we do. But how do you know that your rankings actually make sense? I see all the time people saying stuff like Bijan Robinson, the RB1, no way he's not worth that. Or what about Breece Hall? He should easily be drafted as a top 10 running back here this year. Garrett Wilson, he's my wide receiver 4. No way he finishes outside the top 5 at the position. We can all throw things out all the time like RB1 or wide receiver 4, but I don't see anyone out there anywhere telling you how to figure out what do those players need to do? What do they need to accomplish to become that RB1 or that RB4? That's right, we're going to be having some fun here today because I asked viewers on our community tab and on Twitter just the other day to submit some rankings for a few players. And if you've been watching here throughout the offseason, you know that we're doing our best to teach you this offseason to really unlock your mind, unlock the way that you think so you find more success in fantasy football. So today, I'm going to take a little bit of time to show you a couple different ways on how you can go about building some of your own personal projections so that way when you build your own personal rankings, they make total sense. Now, if you like fantasy football cheat codes like this, do me a favor, hit the like button if you could, 1,000 likes on this video, and I'm going to pick a random commenter from down below to give a free 2023 fantasy football draft guide to. But I really want to see who's paying attention out there, so if you're listening right now, put the hashtag #WeSmart down below, and you may have a little bit of a better chance of winning said draft guide. All right, but let's go ahead and dive in. Now, just a couple days ago, I put a post out on the YouTube community tab and on Twitter. In that post, I asked the community to rank the players that I had listed by their position, right? I wanted to know what you thought of Nick Chubb, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Aaron Jones, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, and Terry McLaurin. Where do you have them ranked? RB what? Wide receiver what? I really wanted to get a gauge for where the community was at. Now, most of you followed the rules. Some of you did not. I mean, y'all had one job. Just one task is all I was asking. And not saying, just saying, if some of you were to post these on YouTube, you would get annihilated in the comment section, RIP your mentions. But I then went through and took an average of where you had all these players ranked. Correction, I had my son go through all the comments and he made the averages for me, right? I mean, he's got to earn his keep, right? Groceries damn expensive nowadays. But I was a little bit shocked that when we put together the overall average consensus rankings of the community, they didn't look that crazy. And this is where they finished. Nick Chubb at RB6, Breece Hall RB11, Bijan Robinson at RB6 also, Aaron Jones RB12, A.J. Brown finished as wide receiver 5, Garrett Wilson at wide receiver 9, Davante Adams also wide receiver 9, and Terry McLaurin wide receiver 15. Now, for the most part, a lot of the rankings on these players were pretty similar. Nick Chubb, A.J. Brown, and Davante Adams were all ranked inside the top 12 at their position by every person who submitted rankings. But Bijan, Breece, Aaron Jones, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, they were all over the place. Bijan went as high as running back 2 and as low as running back 18 by somebody. Breece Hall as high as running back 4, as low as running back 24. Aaron Jones as high as running back 5 and as low as running back 21. For the 2 wide receivers, we had Garrett Wilson with a high of wide receiver 4 and a low of wide receiver 16, and then Terry McLaurin with a high of wide receiver 6 and a low of wide receiver 24. So this is what we're going to do now. Let's look at some realistic projections for a couple of these guys, calculate them out into fantasy points, and then use historical data to see where they would have finished at the position with that point total. Doing an exercise like this is the best way to turn your thoughts in your head into actual numbers to see if you're in the right spot when you're building rankings. I can't tell you how many times I'll get comments that say things like, Garrett Wilson, my wide receiver 2, he's going to have at least 100 catches for 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns. I hate to break it to you, but 100 catches, 1,400 yards, and 10 touchdowns is 250 half PPR points, which isn't even enough for him to crack the top 5 at the position. I know that because I've created a nifty spreadsheet that actually shows me the average points scored by finishers in half PPR scoring at each position. In my opinion, this thing is like gold. Actually, after this show is posted, I'm probably gonna have Taylor put this graph into our draft guide so people can use it as a reference. Absolutely love it. If you haven't gotten our draft guide yet, be sure to do so. It's on sale right now. TheFantasyHeadliners.com, links down below in the description. If you want yours for free, just sign up for Underdog, use the referral code Headliners, make that initial $10 deposit, you'll get a free draft guide as well. But really pay attention here for the next couple minutes, because if you can learn this process, you can apply it to any single player in fantasy football and make sure that you're building great rankings. So when it comes to Bijan, a lot of huge expectations, right? A ton of huge expectations for Bijan Robinson, but let's be realistic and let's start with touches. Now, only 4 running backs in the NFL last year averaged over 20 plus touches a game. Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry. Does Bijan get on that list in his rookie year here in 2023? I think he's super close, right? To play it a little bit safe, let's pencil him in right now for 19 touches a game. Over a 17-game span, that is 323 total touches as a rookie. That would have been 6th highest in the NFL just last season. It's a lot of touches. I believe it's a fair number. But now we go into the receiving numbers. Everyone expects him to be highly involved in the passing game. A lot of people out there think that he's going to have an opportunity for big-time pass-catching volume. Now, only 10 running backs in the NFL last year had 50-plus receptions. But Bijan is special, right? So let's pencil him in to start with 65 receptions. If we take those 65 receptions out of the total touch number, it's going to leave us 258 carries. Sounds pretty realistic. Now, on average, NFL running backs, they average right around 7.3 yards per reception. At least that's the number in 2022. And that is a really good number. Saquon Barkley in his rookie year averaged 7.9 in his massive season. So it's a very fair number. 65 receptions and at 7.3 yards per reception, that equals 475 receiving yards or 80 half PPR points if you include receptions and the yardage total. Okay, now let's go on to rushing. We know we have 258 carries to work with. Anything over 5 yards per carry in the NFL is considered elite, and on average, only a handful of starting running backs in the NFL hit that number yearly. But Bijan is special, right? So 258 carries at 5 yards per carry comes out to be 1,290 rushing yards or 129 half PPR points. So right now, as we sit, before we even talk touchdowns, Bijan Robinson has 1,765 total yards with 65 receptions, which is a total of 209 half PPR points. That right there is a crazy good year, especially for a rookie in the NFL. But now let's add in some touchdowns. Here is a chart that shows the average points scored by finishers at each position, the one that I mentioned earlier in the show. You can see that over the last 2 years, 209 half PPR points was good enough to finish as running back 12 overall. But like I said, we ain't talked touchdowns here yet. So in order for him to hit that high ranking, the person who had him as their running back 2, he would need a total of 311 points. That's an additional 102 fantasy points or 17 touchdowns. Is 17 touchdowns overly realistic? Probably not. How about if we were to reach the consensus average of running back 6? He would need 242 points or 6 touchdowns to hit that number. Bijan's elite though. Honestly, I can see him passing 6 touchdowns and really be closer to that double-digit mark of 10. That would give him 1,765 total yards, 10 total touchdowns, 65 receptions, 269 half PPR points, and be good enough for him to finish as running back 5 if we look at historical data. So if you look at this entire projection that we just built and you think that it looks realistic, honestly, Bijan shouldn't be any higher in your rankings than running back 5, if that makes sense. But let's do another one, right? Let's do one for a wide receiver, not a rookie, a guy who's been in the league for a few years. Let's look at Terry McLaurin. And it's really a little bit easier to look at wide receivers because really, we don't have to worry about rushing, right? We're only looking at that receiving total, especially for ones that have been in the league for a few years that we can kind of see some of their trends. It makes this process so much easier, but you can go about finding it a little bit differently because we do have that historical data. Now, over the last 3 years, Terry McLaurin has averaged 128 targets per season, 80 receptions per season, and 1,120 yards along with 5 touchdowns a year. He has now actually seen a decrease in his target total in 3 straight seasons, despite missing only 1 game over the last 3 years. But with Jahan Dotson now going into his 2nd year, Sam Howell looking like the potential week 1 starter, I don't really see a path in this offense for him to get more volume than what he's gotten here recently. Now, I do think, and I know this may not be a popular opinion, I believe that Sam Howell and even backup quarterback right now, Jacoby Brissett, is better for Terry McLaurin than what he had last year with Carson Wentz and Taylor Gimme a Heineke. We know Sam Howell likes to push the ball down the field more, and we saw Jacoby Brissett just last year feed a team's #1 wide receiver when he was in Cleveland throwing the ball to Amari Cooper. So let's just start this projection at 130 targets. It's only 2 more than what his average has been over the last 3 seasons. But then maybe because we do see a slight uptick in quarterback play, what if we just raised his average receptions to 85? Only 5 more than his last 3 seasons average. Now, when we look at his career yards per reception, it's sitting at 14.3, which is a very fitting number for a wide receiver of his skill set in his situation. That's a great number. 85 catches at 14.3 yards per reception comes out to be 1,216 yards or 164.1 fantasy points in half PPR scoring, and we haven't talked about touchdowns yet. But we're not going to throw some big number in the touchdown category for Terry McLaurin. That's never really been a big part of his game. He continues to average right around 5 touchdowns a year. So let's not get crazy here. Let's pencil him in for 5 touchdowns, and that will put him all the way up to 194.1 half PPR points, which is good enough, according to our averages spreadsheet, to be wide receiver 15. But if we look at this spreadsheet a little bit closer, we see that he's only 9 points shy of being up inside the top 12 overall at the position if he could just get a couple more touchdowns this season. Maybe you see him doing a little bit less than what we just discussed. Well, that's okay. He's still inside the top 20 by a 16-point cushion. So at worst, a top 20 wide receiver with potential upside of top 12. So as you can see, there's a few ways that you can go about building these projections. But if you don't follow a process like this when you're building rankings, you could be putting expectations on players that even you don't think that they can hit. And that is a problem, and that's why I love referencing this spreadsheet. Like I said, I'm going to have Taylor add it to our draft guide so it'll be there as a reference for people during draft day. Build some projections. Look at some of the players you like. Maybe you don't like how we have a player outlook. That is okay. Look at him in your eyes in the way that you feel that he should be ranked. Pencil in those numbers, that stat line, assign it fantasy points, see where it falls in historical data, and see where you feel comfortable drafting a player. Now, I don't watch a lot of other fantasy content. I don't want others' opinions really swaying the way that I do my process, but I can honestly say I've never seen anyone try to break down things to this level to you, the viewer. I'm trying to help give you the keys to the car. And if I do say so myself, I feel like this information is a motherfucking banger to have during your fantasy football drafts. If you agree, do me a favor, hit the like button now, leave that comment below. Remember, hashtag WeSmart down below in the comment section, because at that 1,000 like mark, I'm giving away a free draft guide to a commenter down below. But for now, I'm going to get out of here for the day. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day and do your part to make the world a better place.